Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the East Anglia Hobbit Community podcast. I'm Jack and I'm here today with Josh.
Hello guys, me again.
Yeah, so back on today, we were going to do a hobby update, just what we'd been up to, but then the day we decided on our topic, the FAQs were updated. So we changed our topic to do a quick run through of the FAQs and the errata and the updates that have been made to that and just our initial thoughts. And we've got a few questions, but we did put up the post quite short notice, so we'll just quickly run through that.
Yeah, I think the meatier part of this one's definitely going to be the FAQ, because the questions... there was a lot of comments on the last podcast, which is what we wanted, but not a lot of actual questions for us to discuss through. But there's a couple in there. There's the one that might take up a bit of time. My answer won't take up a lot of time. I don't know if Jack was even here when it happened. Was the models in a specific shield wall formation, and you can't charge certain models because it was a big thing on the GBHL.
I remember reading something about it, but I'd kind of read it, but then couldn't be bothered to read all the comments.
Yeah, we'll discuss it, but my answer is going to be very blunt. Anyway, so Jack, let's go.
Yeah, so we'll run through. We're just going to go through one at a time. Go through the errata and the designer's commentary questions on there as well. But we're just going to go through what has been updated. There's no point going through stuff that's been there for ages and ages. Mm-hmm. So we'll start with the rules manual first off. So we'll just jump straight into it. So the first change on this one I've got here is about the heroic challenge. So the little addition to this rule is if the challenge is declined, the declining hero may not use stand fast for the remainder of the game. I think it's a nice little change because you don't really see heroic challenge anyway, but it gives another reason to use it.
I think the issue or the reason why that's changed is because people would offer it out and there was no downside to declining it. So you've almost just wasted a might point even challenging in the first place.
Yeah.
Whereas now, especially because, I mean, you're likely to offer a challenge either A, when you're in a really strong position, or B, now with this change, B, when you know you're close to breaking the enemy.
Yes, it's a little extra tactical reason to use it. I think it's good. I think I may have been involved may have done one heroic challenge in like a friendly game.
I think Shagrat's got challenge, so it's definitely something I'll be looking at. Yeah,
I use a few bigger heroes that tend to have challenge, but I just haven't really used it. But it gives another thing to consider when you might be using it. So yeah, nice little change. It's not going to massively change it, but it might make it be used a little bit more, which I think that's what it's intended.
Yeah,
intended for really.
The next one is referring to war beasts. So add the following line to the end of the 5th paragraph. If a Howdah is reduced to 0 wounds, it is destroyed, and all models within the Howdah suffer falling damage. Any that survive are placed prone as close to the war beast as possible. I guess that must be one where there was some ambiguity in the wording of the rules before, or how it was played before. Seemed pretty straightforward.
It makes complete sense.
I mean, if it's destroyed, they're not going to be like, oh, we'll just stand on top of this massive elephant.
Yeah, and they fall, and if they don't die, they're prone. Fairly sensible.
I mean, what is it? Strength 3 hit per 3 inch per inch after your height you fall, or something. You're probably gonna die.
But if not, you place prone and as close to the war beast as possible. Makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
The next one is the one ring, which you mentioned this earlier.
I did.
So add the following sentence: whilst invisible, the ring bearer may move through friendly and enemy models, provided they do not end there and move overlapping any part of another model's base. It's a good little rule. I think kind of like with Bilbo sneaking through, sneaking around. It makes thematic sense as well.
Bilbo's ring? No, they're not. It's Sauron's ring rule. Who's different, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. He says he doesn't follow the normal rules. He uses these rules, isn't it?
Yeah. So for me, I was looking at doing a Goblin Town list with Gollum in, and obviously, if there's no ring bearer on the field, he automatically adds the one ring to his war gear.
Yeah.
And I immediately thought of some interesting little combos with the Goblin King and then Gollum like sneaking through I think he moves faster than goblins.
So he could stand. You can have not just in this golem, but in that situation, you can stand him behind the Goblin King, charge into a hero, and then run around the back of them potentially if it works out and there's no spear support. So yeah, it doesn't massively change it, but again,
it's just a cool little thing.
And
a Sildor as well is quite scary potentially,
and a little extra tactical thing to use with the ring.
So the next one,
you can do these both together, really. The next two.
The next one is a big one for the current meta of the competitive Hobbit or SBG players. Sorry, it's not called Hobbit anymore. So Nature's Wrath changed the second sentence to read: all enemy models within 3 inches of the caster are knocked prone. So it was 6 inches before.
Mm-hmm. Halved it down to 3.
Which I can understand why. It's not something
seems
that
a bit drastic, a massive reduction. Like half is quite a lot. But then if it was dominating too much, then obviously it needed to be reined in a little bit.
I know some of the more competitive lists had multiple casters of this spell as well.
Yeah.
At higher points. So like Raddy, Elrond and Arwen, which is perfectly, at a certain amount of points level with Rivendell Knights, is a very horrible little army.
Because I've used it a little bit, because I again, more friendly games. I think I used Radagast in the last league event, and obviously he's got Nature's Wrath. And with the Slay, I guess it probably was a bit too far having 6 inches on the edge of the Slay, bearing in mind you can angle that as in whatever way you need to.
Oh yeah, move it up.
So it's quite a big base, but if it was too powerful, I don't know if I played against it, so maybe people I've played against would be able to say whether it was a bit too much or not.
I mean, I've played against Raddy, but I had enough heroes. I had my heroes positioned in such a way that I could always at least try to resist it.
Yeah.
So the one turn or the 2 turns that the person did cast it against me, I was fortunate enough to be able to resist it.
It's kind of following the trend with Magic of how it is in this edition. It's a bit more kind of situational, and you've got to be a bit more careful with it. I
think the reason for the change in the area of the spell, in this case, and for Wrath of Brunei, it's basically the same thing, but one's better in water, is because, as Jay said in his designer's notes when this was announced as on the Warhammer community page, was the fact that you could have your knights charge in, and then your hero casting the spell doesn't have to be directly involved in any combats, or unless you want him to be, of course. He could be far away enough where he's perfectly safe, and then
drop in and out a bit too much.
Next turn, if you lose priority, he can still just cast it again because he's not going to get charged.
Yeah.
So I think having the reduction in the area of both spells, because they're very similar, is actually it's a very interesting change.
So yeah, I'll probably be using this a little bit when I use some of my army list, Radagast and things. So might have a bit better of idea.
I still think it's very good. It's just a little bit more. You just have to be a little bit more willing to commit a hero, basically.
Yeah. So we'll see how it plays out, and it seems to be more based at the multiple, like you're saying, the multiple Nature's Wrath lists, and just can't cover such a massive area with one spell.
Yeah.
So again, not massively different, just changes it slightly, just tones it down a bit. So yeah, it should be fine. Next one is siege engines, and I just quickly read through this yesterday, and it's an army or allied contingent may only include 1 siege engine for each hero with a heroic tier of hero of fortitude or above that is taken from the same army list as the siege engine.
Okay.
So
what were people spamming before then?
I have no idea. Maybe what's the Gondor?
The bolt thrower?
Potentially.
I guess if an army or allied contingent may only include 1 siege engine for each hero with a heroic tier of a hero of fortitude or above.
I never played anyone who had multiple siege engines. Well, definitely not more than the heroes they had. So
I know that 3 Avenger bolt throwers was somewhat popular. Maybe not popular, but I know it was a thing.
So it's probably just to stop people spamming them out, which is...
Surely you'd still have 3 heroes above fortitude, though.
Depends on the points levels, I guess.
I guess it could be at low points, because I don't think they're overly expensive. I guess you could just have Denethor and then because he's obviously a hero of legend or valor, whatever he is, and then 3 bolt throwers. That would be your army.
Yeah, or maybe there was multiple Iron Hills siege engines floating about with just Dane, maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
Who knows? But I didn't come across that. But yeah, it's not going to make a massive difference to the majority of armies.
Again, it must just be a game balance issue.
Or maybe people were allying in Iron Hills just to take the siege engine. So we're just taking the Iron Hills, because obviously we'll come onto that a bit later as well. But potentially, if you had whatever army list with a convenient allies of Iron Hills, or even impossible allies or whatever.
Yeah, that's true.
Because if it's impossible allies and you didn't want your army bonus, it didn't really matter at that point, did it?
So, and now you'd have to take a captain as well. Yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe it's something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Just another kind of loophole bin.
So there's quite a lot regarding impossible allies coming up. So the first part, add the following. Models may not benefit from banners or banner effects of models from the army list that is impossible allies. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
There obviously, what Middle-earth team has suggested that what we've seen from the legendary legions in Gondor at War and the Scouring the Shire are that, the legendary legions and the historical allies lists or single army lists have benefits, and they're just, you can play impossible allies, but you are losing your benefits for it. Yeah.
So, and then, you carry on with the next bit.
Yep. When playing a game using Impossible Alliance, each section of your force will be considered a separate army for the purpose of being broken. This means that you will need to track the breakpoint for each part of your overall army individually. This may result in certain parts of the army being broken, and therefore taking courage tests for being broken before other parts of the overall army, if any part of the army is considered to be broken at the end of the game, then that will concede any victory points for being broken. I've read that really badly because there was a lot of text, but
people can follow it along anyway. They're free. FAQ.
Yeah. So this is interesting. I can understand why they've done it, and it makes perfect sense. But for scenarios where the game ends, you start rolling for the game to end once you're broken.
Yeah, it's just another reason not to take impossible allies. But it is,
but it also isn't. If you think where what scenario, Whole Ground, for instance, or I can't remember off the top of my head, Lords of Battle, maybe to the death, where you take a ring wraith, for instance, and that's your one model from an impossible ally, and you've marched and ran the rest of your army onto the hill, and you're going to have more models there, and then your ring wraith casts 12 dice transfix because he can.
Just to kill him, just to get rid of himself.
Not sure if you're allowed to do that, but it's an example. Don't slew me. Does that then mean you roll from that turn? Because technically one half of your army is broken.
So yeah, it kind of stops people abusing it, but then I suppose that kind of opens up another way, not necessarily abused, but another way for it to be used in an unintended way.
In an unintended way, yeah.
So yeah, see how that pans out. Maybe
theoretically, you have 30 models on the middle. You roll, the game ends.
Yeah.
You go, okay, I'm broken, but I've won, and you're like, oh, thanks, yeah, cool. I don't know if that was how that's. Maybe that'll get FAQ'd again at some point, but.
Yes, so I don't really use impossible allies, so stuff makes sense.
I play one army or historical. So
I think the banner and the banner effects makes complete sense. The broken thing again makes sense, but like you looking at it, even just with one look, has already seen how that can potentially.
That's just what someone mentioned. I think I read that somewhere else. That the example I gave might have been wrong, but
no, but along those kind of lines.
Along those kind of lines, yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. But again, if they're going to make it so negative to be impossible allies, why not just say you can't have impossible allies? I know that's restricting the game, but if it's going to go this far as to kind of stop all the benefits, that's a bit extreme, because then you still get the combos that people want to use, but you've got to balance it up with the drawbacks, I guess.
Again, they must have seen in the more competitive areas of the game a certain one model or... Actually, an example of this is what Jason was going to use for the 450 event. I think it was 450. His list was a Balrog, a Bat Swarm, and Rasku. One, because he doesn't need either army's army bonus. And two, you can't break it because it's only 3 models. But now technically you can, because you kill Rasku and that half of the army is broken. So there was obviously some benefits to taking impossible allies that they've seen, and there's a good reason as to why they've done that. But
I suppose it's for our events, the ones where you run, we don't see too many cheesy combos, if any. You
might see what's the story? Is it ally of what's the middle one?
Convenient.
That's the one. I know that a few people, well, yourself included, run those because the army bonus for Rivendell is not that important, and I don't know what the White Council army bonus is if it has one.
It's another member of the White Council, and you get +1 to resist, I think.
I mean, it's good, but again, if you've already got a wizard, it doesn't really matter.
It depends how you're making the army, if you want that or not.
I imagine some people have been dropping. I saw the example again was shades. I think shades have been dropped into lists, and there's no real downside to adding a shade into any army. It's pretty horrific.
Yeah.
But I guess now if you can kill the shade, then it benefits the person playing against the shade. So
I guess it's just balancing out. If someone's found a cheesy combo, there's another thing for them to consider if they think the benefits outweigh drawbacks.
What I really like about the Middle Earth updates in similar to the 40k one are February, August, is that it's enough time in between the 2 updates for the meta to sort of, everyone's now got enough time between now and February again to figure out anything that's a little bit too strong and then
be toned down before everyone is doing it again.
Yeah, I think it keeps it keeps the game fresh. You don't have the same meta over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So that's the game rules manuals one.
Yeah. Well, there's a designer's commentary as well. There's just more more community questions. We'll go through this a bit quicker than the other bits, I think. We'll go through it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is probably the bigger talking points anyway.
Yeah. So some of these are quite simple. So the first one, we're just running through the new ones, stuff that's already there in the black writing. That's been there. People have probably read it, so we're just going to do the new ones.
Yeah.
First one is, if a model takes a jump test across the barrier and rolls a 2 to 5, can they be placed in base contact with an enemy model and that does not have a control zone and therefore fight them in the fight phase? The answer is no. Fairly simple.
So you'd have to roll a 6, basically,
to move over and charge. So you can get to the other side, but you can't charge unless you roll a 6, basically. Okay. Fairly straightforward.
The next question. What happens if a model moves as part of a heroic move or heroic march declared by a friendly hero, but due to a failed roll, they cannot finish their moves in 6 inches of that hero, e.g., failing a jump, climb, leap, roll, or failing to kill a model through impact hits or trample? Are they still allowed to attempt that move, even though there is a chance, however small, that they will not finish their moves in 6 of the hero? Gives quotes of when that would happen. And the answer is, they may still attempt to move, so as long as they are trying to finish their move in 6 inches, if they fail a roll that prevents this, they simply stop where they currently are.
Fairly obvious.
I guess people may have moved them up to where they were trying beforehand rather than just stopping, maybe roll the... I guess that would imply that you roll the test before moving the model, maybe? Or am I overreading that? Or would they literally just move up to the point of where they roll for the test and then they just stop there if they fail?
If they fail, and then then they can still move even if they finish without a 6.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So that one, this is quite a quick one, but very simple. Do models have to make way of Fable, or is it optional? Making way is optional. I thought you had to make way. So that's even if it's not done, it may result in the model being trapped. So it might be beneficial for you to trap your own model, so you could potentially trap the enemy model in the next fight. Because obviously, when people got priority, you can manipulate which fights go first to free up models.
I thought you had to make way.
I thought it was you have to make way if you can, but obviously if it's optional, then that again opens up a few little tactical things, which is quite nice.
For some trapping going on both ways, I guess.
That'll be quite interesting. Something to bear.
If a hero has declared a heroic move or heroic march and has called either with me or at the double, and then subsequently dies before completing their move, e.g., falling off a cliff, drowning, suffering a fatal wound from failing to climb, jump, etc., what happens to those models that were affected by the heroic action? The models will be unable to move that turn as they are unable to finish their moves in 6 inches of the hero that called with me or at the double.
Fairly straightforward again. Yeah.
Yep.
So then next one. Here, if a hero declares a heroic move or heroic march and declares either with me or at the double, then moves off the table where this is allowed, can the models affected by the heroic action also move off the table? Yes. However, any models that cannot move off the table for any reason must forfeit their move for that turn.
I think that came up because someone asked this question about Reconnoiter. I don't know if that's the last time I saw it. It's probably been asked beforehand, but someone asked on Reconnoiter, if you heroic move off, but your other models can only move so far, what happens? So they can be affected, but they just can't move. That's fair.
Yeah, makes sense, because if you want a class being off the board as a separate board, if you like, they won't be within 6 because
yeah,
makes sense.
If a hero declares a heroic move or heroic march and declares either with me or at the double respectively, but does not move off the table in games where this is allowed, can the models affected by the heroic action move off the table themselves? No.
Okay, so
that was the question that I saw on the GBHL. Someone said, if I move my hero up, can I move the models off? And they said no, so that's fine.
Yeah, so similar to the first bit. So you either all move off or all stay on.
Can I use a might to increase the score on a d6 when rolling for heroic strike? No. I thought that was obvious, but obviously the game's had a lot of newer players, so that makes sense.
Yep. If a model declares a heroic defense, it's fighting a model that never requires more than a certain number to wound, such as Azog or Aragon, will they still only be wounded on the roll of a natural 6? Yes. So heroic defense supersedes any 4+ wound
or
modifiers.
3+ with Azog.
Yeah, which I think that's how I was playing it.
Yes, again, I think that's how the wording makes sense, but
just clearing things up.
I guess it's one rule, as you said, supersedes the other rules. So when the commander of a war beast declares with me as part of a heroic move, do you measure the distance from the commander or from the base of the war beast? And the answer is from the commander. This will usually mean that only the war beast will be affected, I guess, unless you've got another war beast next to it. But
so
it's because of the height, maybe.
Yeah, to be honest with you, if I was doing this, I would have probably used the base, to be honest, because with normal models you do, but obviously War Beasts are slightly different. I must admit, I haven't read the War Beast rules too thoroughly. I have, but not over and over again. So
I haven't. I've never really looked at them, but
so it might be a bit more clear in the other rules. But anyway, it's there, so it's from the commander, not the base of the model.
Can the commander of a war beast use their own might and will to improve a courage test made by the war beast to see if it stampedes? Answer is yes. Again, I guess that's because it counts as a mount. Yeah, and it's one model, so it's the same as if you're on a fell beast or a horse or whatever.
So if a model has fainted with their two-handed swords, can they reroll a roll of a 1, even though it would normally become a 2 as the model fought two-handed? And it can. I've always played it that way. I get what it means. If you roll a 1 or whatever number with a two-handed, it gets a +1. But it's just what the roll is when you, it's
a natural one, isn't it?
I always played it like that.
I mean, they've said yes as well, so it makes sense.
Yeah, just clearing it up again.
If a model with a spear is involved in a fight and loses, but it is not slain and subsequently backs away into base contact with a friendly model, can they then support that fight? No, that's always been a no.
Yeah, because they've already fought once. Turn. You're either in the fight or supporting. You can't be doing both.
If a model with a lance charges, wins the fight, and then rolls a 1 to wound, can it re-roll the 1 for a relevant special rule, poison weapons, ancient enemies, etc.? Or does the +1 to wound from the lance mean that this cannot be the case? Yes, the model with the lance can re-roll the 1 with the relevant special rule. Oh, that's fair.
Same as the two-handed fainting business.
Yeah.
It's a 1 at the end of the day, and you've rolled the 1. The 1 becomes a 2 to wound. That was always my interpretation of it as well.
Yeah.
So if a cavalry model opts to stab and loses the fight, is it the rider or the mount that suffers the strength 2 hit? the rider, as they are the one who is stabbing. Again,
that's interesting that someone tried to put it on the mount or somewhere that's happened where it's been going on the mount instead. So the mount hasn't got a sword or a dagger or...
Maybe it's saying the rider has accidentally stabbed them both, maybe.
Maybe it's, yeah.
Oh, well, that clears it up anyway.
If a cavalry model opts to pierce his strike and loses the fight, is it the riders or the mount's defense that is reduced by D3? The riders, as they are. So it's the same as the question above, but regarding piercing strike.
If a model with multiple attacks elects to bash and wins the ensuing fight, do they roll a d6 for each attack or only one? They will only roll a single d6. So,
can a model with a throwing weapon use it in the fight phase if they get to move as part of a successful heroic combat? No. Oh, okay.
So yeah, no throwing in the move phase, winning the heroic combat, and throwing again in the... Because I suppose you're meant to do throwing weapons in the move phase, aren't you? So...
Or shoot phase if you're not charging.
Exactly, yeah. So not in the combat phase. Makes sense.
Yeah.
If a model that is armed with both a throwing weapon and a bow throws a throwing weapon as it charges into combat and subsequently kills its target, can they then fire their bow in the shoot phase, providing they have not moved over half of their move allowance? And the answer is no. So you've shot one of your distance weapons, if you like, so you can't use both. Again
if anyone's tried that, they're a cheesy scumbag. It's a good idea, but
it's one of those things. It's if you were playing to the letter, if it wasn't very, I don't know whether it was clear or not in the original rules, but technically that they may not be wrong if they're looking at what they were reading, but it's obviously not as it was intended, and it's just been clear.
True. Can models pass on a banner in any other situation other than having been slain or fleeing the board? No, makes sense.
So when they're dead or gone, that's the only when they can pass it. So this is interesting because this was I spoke to Dan about this as well. Do the effects of multiple war drums stack? For example, if they have 2 war drums in one force and sound both, will I add 3 inches for each or 5 inches for each for cavalry onto the move value of my models affected by the war drum? And no, the effects do not stack.
That was already...
I don't know if it was in the actual rules. I think it's one of those things that it didn't say no or yes. Right. But obviously, it's intended that the war drum you can only use one, but you can still stack it up with march. Yeah.
Maybe that's where the unclearness came from. When a model is fighting an enemy wearing the one ring, their fight value is halved. Is this rounded up or down? Rounded up. Okay.
See, I don't know if that was written in it, but obviously transfix is rounded up as well, isn't it?
Yes.
So it's just the same as the transfix.
Well, transfix now doesn't actually, unless it's channeled, doesn't affect your fight value.
And is the bat swarm rounded up? I assume it is.
I
can't remember.
Ooh, is the bat swarm the one that's... I'm sure one of them's down. I don't know.
But anyway, this one's up, so that's all it is.
Yeah. How does protection of the Valor work in regards to magical powers and special rules that don't directly target a model? For example, chill or a harbinger of evil, miasmic presence. Oh, that's the tainted one, isn't it? The answer is the model that has the protection of the Valor cast upon them will be affected as normal as the magical power or special rule doesn't target them directly.
How does protection of Valor work in regards to magical powers and special rules that directly target multiple models? For example, Nature's Wrath, Wrath of Brunin. The model that has protection of Valor cast upon them cannot be affected by the magical power special rule, though any models that would be affected will be as normal. The model may still attempt to resist such a magical power, but will not be affected if they fail to do so. So you can still... So if in your 3-inch bubble now, it sounds like if you've got 3 models in there, one of them was hit by your protection of Valor, they won't be affected, but the other 2 still will.
Okay.
And then the one that's of the edge in the protection of Valor can still resist the overall magic spell. Right. But if they fail their resist, they still won't be affected because they've got protection of the Valor, but it doesn't cancel the the spell if just one of them has the protection instead of, so the others still get affected. So I imagine someone was maybe saying
bubbling it.
Yeah, potentially. So if my 1 out of, let's say, 7 guys has got the protection, all of the others have got it. Well, no, it's just that one is kind of ignores it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, a lot of these changes are obviously just to clear things up as they were intended.
Will Protection of Valor protect a model from trample, chariot charge, or demolition charge? No. Makes sense. Another one. If a model with the fly special rule and a large base size, such as Smaug or a dragon, finish its move on top of a terrain, but there would be room for other models to move underneath this model, is this allowed? The answer, in short, is yes, but if they're within an inch, they would have to fight in the fight phase. And if they would have to do a courage test in order to be under an inch away, they have to do a courage test first, basically.
Yeah, so I suppose that's just keeping the 1 inch control zones.
Even though they're above them. But yeah,
so it's kind of as a 360.
It's a 3D 360 sphere of control.
Yeah.
Can a model with the Mighty Hero special rule still use their 3 point of might from this special rule if they have no might remaining in the store? Yes. Again, I thought that was...
I've always played it that way.
I never thought it wasn't that, but obviously some people did.
If a model with monstrous charge special rule charges and is subsequently charged by other models, are all models not prone if the model with monstrous charge wins the fight, so long as they're a lower strength, or just the ones that were originally charged? All models that were in the fight, even if they're subsequently charged. So everything's not prone. So similar to a normal cavalry charge.
Yeah.
But I did actually read this. I used Eagles recently, and the wording I think wasn't 100% clear, because I remember thinking, well, you would assume everything's not prone, similar to a normal cavalry charge on infantry.
Yeah.
But I think the wording wasn't too tight, potentially. I might be making it up, but I'm sure when I read it, I thought, oh, it's not 100% clear, but that's cleared it up.
There you go, it's clarified it for you.
So you can charge one horse, and then when you're charged by another 4 or 5 with your fell beast or your eagles, them horses will also be knocked prone.
Can a model benefit from the Stalk Unseen special rule if they are obscured by other models but not by terrain? No, a model must be obscured by terrain to gain the benefits of Stalk Unseen.
Same with rule, doesn't it?
Same with an Elven Cloak. So
yeah, it does.
I think it says in the rule it follows the rules of an Elven Cloak. So
it's cleared up again.
Yeah.
So again, linking on to that, step 1. The rules no longer state that a model that wishes to use the throw stone special rule has to declare they are stooping for a stone. Is this intentional? Yes. So, yeah,
I guess that's where you get into the thick of a game. It's coming down to the last few turns. You go, I'm going to throw my stone. Your opponent goes, but you didn't declare it. If you've stood still, I don't see why you'd have to declare it. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's a crappy crossbow, basically.
Yeah.
So it should follow the rules exactly as a crossbow. Well, not exactly, but yeah, similar along the lines. So it makes sense.
Can siege engine crews be bought additional war gear from their profile of the model that represents them, such as banners, war horns, etc., if applicable? The answer is no.
Yeah, makes sense. I imagine that maybe some people had a siege engine at the back for a war horn on one of the additional crew members because it's going to be hidden anyway.
That's a dirty idea.
But I would have never done that. And if anyone asked that in an army list, I probably would have just said no.
Yeah, no. But yeah.
That's it.
If the shot from a siege engine hits a combat, will every model in that combat count as being hit by the initial shot, or will only the model that is hit directly count as being hit by the initial shot, and it's only the model that is directly hit?
So I think that's in terms of the auto kill, because obviously all the ones in the combat are still not prone.
Yeah,
but they're not all classed as an auto kill, which makes sense.
Definitely. A model that spends a full turn in base contact with the siege engine can destroy it, providing it has done nothing else that turn. What exactly does this mean? So the answer to that somewhat obvious question, in my opinion. The model will need to be in base contact with the siege engine at the start of the turn, as in before priority, then at the end of the turn. Oh, okay, that's not obvious. The end phase, they will have spent the entire full turn in base contact, so the siege engine will be destroyed, so as long as they have done nothing. So you have to move there the turn before, then you have to spend the whole subsequent following turn.
So it's not like a shoot phase to shoot phase, it's a start to finish turn.
It's a start to finish, yeah. That makes sense.
When a model is stated as not counted towards an army's bow limit, does this mean that, so again, I think this was a fairly obvious one, but people unsure.
Yep.
They're ignored entirely, and therefore only a third of the remaining models in the force can have bows, or Are they still counted for a number of models but not counted as having bows? In which case, could an army contain 2/3 of models with bows that don't count towards the bow limit, and then a further 1/3 armed with bows that do count? And they are saying that A is the actual way to do it. So basically, they're completely ignored. So you couldn't have 10 Rivendell Knights with bows not counting towards your bow limit, then counting them as 10 unarmed models without bows, rather. So yeah, that's just trying to get around wordings. It's quite obvious they're a separate entity to your bow limit, which makes sense again.
If in the match play scenarios, when a deployment states that models must be deployed in a certain area, is this within or wholly within? Oh, I've not understood what the.
I think it's with the answer clears it up. I think so.
Okay, deployment is always wholly within one exception. In the Contest of Champions scenario, leaders only need to be within 3 inches of the center of the board rather than wholly within. Okay.
So I think it's a case of, so for example, when you've got larger model bases, that aren't going to fit there, or I think it's because also with Contest Champions, people put their leader within the 3 inches or in the whole bubble and then put their army along in front of them if they're not a combat hero.
Yeah.
So I think it's just to say, as long as you're in that 3 inches, your whole model doesn't have to be in there.
Does the Goblin Mercenaries rule make that different?
Well, no, because your leader would still need to be in there.
But I mean, just because it says all match play scenarios, so like Storm the Camp.
Well, they always have to be wholly within, apart from contest.
Don't Goblin Mercenaries deploy from scenery, though?
I suppose that's a separate way, because it says use these rules rather than the normal rules for deployment, doesn't it?
Ah, right. There you go. You've cleared it up for me.
So you would use their ones, I imagine.
Fair enough.
So I guess this is more for models like a Mummock that isn't going to fit in a 3 inch. So it's probably you just do your best to get it there.
Yeah, you have the base, the tip of the base in, and then the rest can be out. That's fair.
Yeah.
In scenarios that require models to capture objectives, do models that have been temporarily switched size, e.g. Denethor, Thrain the Broken, count as scoring victory points for the owning player, or the player temporarily controls them? And the answer is the owning player.
Okay, so on the last turn, if you're moving Denethor, you can't steal the VPs, which makes sense because he's part of the other person's army.
I guess you just move him off the objective entirely. But
yeah.
And then there's one more. The rules for deploying siege engines state that they are deployed within 6 inches of the controlling player's board edge, whilst the rules for the Contest of Champions scenario state that your leader must be deployed within 3 inches of the centre of the board. If my leader has a siege engine, e.g. Bard the Bowman or Girion with a wind lance, which takes precedent? And the answer is the deployment rules for Contest of Champions will overrule the deployment rules for the siege engine in this situation.
Kind of makes sense to me, I think, as well.
Yeah, but I can understand why it's been asked.
Yeah, it's just to clear it up. So yeah, a lot of those are, for some people, maybe obvious. We'll swing through, quickly do the other ones. I don't think the others are too long. So we'll go with the Armies of Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
Start with the errata for that. So there's only been 2 additions to this.
Yep.
First one, Gondor Avenger Bolt Thrower. The crew number has changed from 2 to 3.
So you don't have to purchase the third man that comes with the set. You just get it automatically. The model will catapult. Area effects. Change the special rule to read, if a catapult scores a hit against the battlefield target, all models within 2 inches of the target suffer 1 strength 5 hit and are knocked prone. This additional hit does not kill a target outright.
I think that's in addition to the FAQ about saying that everyone who is hit by the scatter isn't straight dead, maybe, I guess.
Are there any questions regarding... Yep. Legolas Greenleaf's deadly shot special rule states that if it fires a single arrow that he will always hit on a 2+, and that this cannot be modified in any way. Can this 2+ be modified by the Shadow Lord's Pale of Darkness special rule? No, deadly shot cannot be modified, so it's always a 2+. There's a couple more. As the King's Huntsman always passes an in the way roll on a 2+ when they target a cavalry model, does the 2+ mean they will hit the rider or their choice of rider or mount? When a King's Huntsman shoots at a cavalry model, they must declare whether they are targeting the horse or the rider. If they hit the cavalry model, they will then roll the 2+ for the in the way.
Yeah, again, just clearing it up. So because you've got a better chance of hitting what you want, just make sure you declare what you want to hit So you always get the 2+ on what you're aiming at.
Yep. Can a shade still use its chill or a special rule if it is transfixed or paralyzed? Yes, because it's passive, even though it needs to be activated at the start of the fight phase. So you can do that.
Yeah.
Can a Dead Marsh Spectre force an enemy model to make a jump, climb, leap, or swim test using their fell light is in their special rule? The answer is they may not make an enemy model make a jump, climb, or leap test. However, if they make a model move into water feature that would cause a swim test, this will be taken as normal.
Okay.
So that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's quite a lot of questions, actually.
So on the next one, if the Balrog suffers multiple wounds from attacks that would normally kill it outright, will it take half its total number of wounds from each successful attack, or half in total as per its Demon of the Ancient World special rule? It will take half from each, so it will take 2 attacks with the ability to kill a Balrog outright to do so. Okay, so it's not half of the wounds and then half of what's left. It's just half of the starting.
So the King of the Dead can 2-tap the Balrog.
Two turn it, yeah. Can the Watcher in the Water displace models so that they are forced off the edge of a cliff? Yes. It's probably not going to come up too often, but it's a nice little addition that cleared it up.
People have been using the Watcher enough for that to be put in there.
Yeah.
Can the Watcher in the Water displace models so that they are forced off the edge of the board? No. Can the Watcher in the Water shoot models it engaged in combat with? Yes. Additionally, the Watcher will not need to take an in the way roll to see if it hits itself. Makes sense?
There's a few more.
Yep.
If a model riding a Khandish chariot is involved in a successful heroic combat, can it use its chariot charge in the ensuing movement? So yes, it's just a charge bonus effectively, isn't it? So you're charging, so yeah.
If a model on a war camel kills a model it charges with the Impaler rule and then charges another model, will inflict a strength 4 hit on this model's? Yeah, it's grim. It does. It hurts a lot. It's not nice.
So war camels again. If a model on a war camel charges an enemy model across a barrier, do they still cause a strength 4 hit against an enemy as per the Impaler special rule? No. Again, no benefits when charging a model defending a barrier. Probably just clearing that up again, just showing which rule takes precedence over the other.
Can a Corsair Reaver within 6 inches of a Corsair Bosun choose to automatically fail its courage tests for its mindless killer special rule? Yes. I think it actually says that in the rule. Yeah. I think it actually says that in the rule anyway, but
clearing things up again. It doesn't hurt to have another bit.
No.
So that's all of that.
Are we doing the Hobbit next?
Yeah, let's do that. So get the errata up. So this is where a couple of the changes are added in. So the first one is the Iron Hills Ballista. So that's had a change points cost to 125 points, up from 90. And again, that was on the article that was posted. And it's just because apparently they were, and they are good, they were dominating a bit too much. So rather than mess around with the rules, because it's quite a good set of rules, it's a good model, they've made it more expensive, which should hopefully...
Well, it's interesting because it's had 2 erratas in the last 2 FAQs.
So it's now got a minimum range of 12, which was added in the last one. And in this one, it's gone up to 125. So 35 points. You're looking at 3 Iron Hills Dwarves. I'd still take it.
Regarding the Ally one or the Hero of Fortitude rule, you could argue it's had 3.
3, effectively, to stop it being allied in. So if you just wanted to ally that and a captain, you'd be paying 200 points, 205, whatever. So
yes,
it's quite a lot to do that way.
I mean, it's still very good value for its points. It's still very, very good.
Yeah.
But I mean, 3 Iron Hills is a lot, but still.
So I did have a think. I was thinking maybe one way, because it's things like the superior construction rule, re-rolling ones. Maybe they could get rid of that if they were looking at ways. I've got Iron Hills. I don't play them that often, so I'm not trying to completely destroy an army that I own. But maybe it was something like that, just to get rid of the re-rolling ones. That's a slight nerf without massively change it.
Incredibly strong, and it was too cheap. So
I think it works well with the army because they haven't got any shooting. They
do. They have crossbows.
Yeah, generally though. And
the Ballista itself can shoot.
Yeah, so basically what I said was just a complete lie.
I mean, you get 12 12
I think
points
it's
a model
good.
with a crossbow. You get 12 crossbowmen for the same price.
Yeah.
Now.
So, yeah, it's quite a big jump in points to go from 90 to 125 in one jump. But it's obviously they felt it was needed.
I mean, at certain points level, so that's not going to matter.
No.
If
And
you
you're
want
only
to take
taking
one and it's
ballista.
600 plus, you can probably still do it.
You're really only taking that at high points anyway. Usually, I'd guess. But
Well, I had this discussion in a group chat yesterday, and some people were saying that it's an auto include at 500 at 90 points, and I guess it is really. You fill out your warbands 410 points, and then you've got 90 points. But again, I have used one. I played Iron Hills before I got rid of them.
yeah, I've used it as well. It's really
and
good.
it is very, very good. Our Sam Huddy, he still has nightmares apparently.
I think I played against Sam Huddy with it as well, and I think I may have killed one of his trolls, maybe Stumpy. Or
I played him at Whole Ground. He had all mounted Rohan. By the time we got to the middle, he had 7 horses left on the table. So it was grim. Legolas Greenleaf, Prince of Mirkwood, options. Change the points of Legolas's Elven Cloak to 5 points. Was it 10?
Must have been, yeah.
I mean, that makes sense because it's not good enough to be worth 10 points. I probably wouldn't pay for it.
Just change it. So a bit on here is about Radagast, and it's just saying change the range of nature after 3 inches. That's in obviously the main rules FAQs, but it's just a case of making sure it ties up the same everywhere. Makes sense. We spoke about that already, and this is one actually because about the Alliance Matrix. So in the armies of the Hobbit and the armies of the Lord of the Rings, there was a slight difference. It was with the Shire being allies with Rangers and Rivendell. One of them was convenient and one of them was historical. I can't remember what way around it was. But anyway, now the errata is, so this is for the armies of the Hobbit, so that one was wrong. Changed the Shire to be historical allies with the Rangers and convenient allies with Rivendell. I guess it was maybe the other way around before, but I remember that being brought up. So it seems like the Lord of the Rings one is correct, but the armies of the Hobbit one was wrong.
I think the actual one in the Shire book's wrong as well.
See, that hasn't even got an FAQ on here yet, so I imagine that will come in the February one. Probably didn't have enough time.
It's only just come out, so they probably the FAQ was probably done before that was released. So
yeah, that's obviously where it is.
So the designer's commentary for this one: if Bofur uses his steadfast special rule to negate the effects of Wrath of Brunine or Nature's Wrath magical powers, will it still affect all other models in range, or is it negated entirely? And it's negated entirely. That's pretty strong.
The Erebor Reclaimed Army bonus states that it affects all friendly Erebor dwarf models. Does this affect friendly Iron Hills dwarves that are taken as part of this list? No, because they've got the Iron Hills keyword, not the Erebor keyword. So it's again just clearing it up. But I think that's because of the old army bonus. You got the banner, for foreign and things like that.
Can Bard and Girion take a Wind Lance in the same army, or is the Wind Lance unique? They may both take a Wind Lance, however, such an alliance will naturally be an impossible alliance. Yeah, funny that. Girion's very dead by the time Bard's able to shoot a Wind Lance. Does Thranduil benefit from any part of the Blade Lord special rule whilst he is mounted?
No, just clearing it up. So if Azog is riding the White Warg, do enemy models have to make a courage test for charging him, as only the White Warg causes terror? Yes, because the White Warg causes terror. So that's just counted as one model.
It's just one model. It's
similar to Fell Beasts and...
Yeah. Can models mounted upon Fell Wargs use its Fell Spite special rule for the purposes of charging? Yeah, you can charge around corners. That's always been...
So that's, So your Hunter Orcs on Fell Wargs can be charging around corners and whatnot.
Yeah, you don't have to see your target because the Fell Warg can smell them or whatever, basically. And if the Spider Queen declares a heroic move and then spawns a number of broodlings as part of that heroic move, can the broodlings move as part of the heroic move? No. So they spawn and stay there. I've
never used one, so...
No, again, I haven't either, to be honest. We've got Gondor at War, or is that it?
Yeah, just Gondor at War now.
We have got battle companies, but I don't think we need to cover that. We'll do that in a separate battle companies video at some point, because I would like to play battle companies, and I'm not going to go I'm not going to mention again that I haven't bought the book yet because people
Yes, we won't ruin all the rules for you.
I think this is it. It's one thing.
Yeah, so for the Riders of Theoden, add the following option to Durnhelm, a throwing spear for 5 points. Was that not on the list already?
Must be mod. Is it modelled?
I'm pretty sure it's modelled with a throwing spear.
As if, yeah, I mean, yeah.
So that was obviously just an oversight. So that's to clear that up.
Are there any designers' notes for Gondor at War?
Yeah, there's a couple of new ones.
There's a few actually, yeah. In the streets of Minas Tirith scenario, where do the Mordor trolls deploy? Deploy a Mordor troll in each section in the same way as the Morannons. In the Battle of the Pelennor Field scenario, how many Black Rule Vale archers are required? 12.
It didn't say before, did it? I remember that.
Okay. Do I still get victory points for wounding the enemy leader if my opponent has Húrin alive on the board? Yes, Húrin only prevents victory points from being scored for killing the enemy leader. Makes sense. As Durnhelm is essentially Éowyn and Merry, can they both declare a different heroic action in the same phase? For example, can Durnhelm declare a heroic strike and Merry also declare heroic combat in the same turn? Nope. Whilst Merry is mounted upon Durnhelm's steed, they are a single model and therefore may only declare a single heroic action in each phase. Can Elfhelm... Oh, sorry, go on, mate.
No, just for this next one. This is interesting because that's different to heroic accuracy.
Okay.
That changed it. So for can Elfhelm reroll is in the way roll against the cavalry model to see if he hits the rider or the mount, and he can. So that's slightly different to accuracy because you can't re-roll to see if you hit the rider or the mount. It's only in the ways.
Oh, okay.
Because that was in an FAQ before, I'm pretty sure. If I'm wrong, someone correct me in the comments, but I'm sure that was mentioned as you get your heroic accuracy, you can re-roll through your combats and in the ways and things like that, but you can't re-roll to hit a horse or rider.
Which you could before.
Yeah, or it at least wasn't clarified before.
Yeah.
So...
if the Merc War Leader declares a heroic challenge whilst atop his Royal Warmamak as part of the Making of a King special rule and is successful, who gains the might points back? The Murmak War Leader or the Murmak itself? And it would be the Murmak War Leader. So that makes sense.
He's declaring it.
And that, well, there is battle companies, but...
We'll save that because you want to go through the book as well. And
I've not even had a look through the book yet. So
yeah, we'll leave that one. But so that's all of those. It might have been a bit hard to follow with us rambling and mumbling through some of the questions, but you can find all them, load the FAQ up, go through the relevant section with us. And it's just some of it, there's nothing to really say about our thoughts. They just are what they are, the questions. But where there's been major changes, we've tried to roughly say what we think. And let us know what you think. Throw a comment at the bottom of this video.
Yeah.
I'm sure one of us will reply to the comments as and when. If you've got any questions about those, we'll throw them again in the comments of the video and we'll answer them in the next video, whenever that will be.
Yeah. So for the question part of this, well, now we've finished what we were going to talk about. It'd be very interesting to see what the meta changes to now, to see if the Wrath of Brunei Nature's Wrath lists are still dominant and frequent. I guess they must have been somewhat frequent for those changes to have taken place. And it'll be also interesting to see if people are put off by taking a ballista at certain points levels now.
Might see more heroic challenges as well.
The heroic challenge one and the ring one are the ones that benefit me in particular because they're armies that I play. Haven't played Goblin Town yet, but I'm looking to. I was waiting for the right points, and I think I found it. And
I think those are more changes, if you like, and additional rules, whereas the other ones are more clarifications and bits that have been missed out. Whereas these seem to be actual changes to try and balance the more competitive side of the game, if you like.
Yeah.
So, they seem good. Just kind of subtle changes that may make a big difference. So we'll have to wait and see how some of those play out, but you won't really know too much until we've played a few games of them.
So we'll go to the comments from Facebook first, just because there's not many of them, actually. Because, again, we put the post up and didn't really have a lot of notice for people.
which is entirely my fault because I
Well, mine
literally
as
put it up
well.
yesterday.
Me and Jack knew we were recording, but I've just been busy and he's just been busy. It is what it is, guys. But there's a good amount of comments on the actual YouTube video, which is what we wanted anyway. But Sam has put a comment in relation to the podcast last week where we had two teams. We actually had more than two teams from the EAHC at doubles, but we had two teams that were highlighted, and me and Dan had a gentleman's bet, friendly bet on, or we predicted rather, who we thought would do better of the two teams. And I believe going into the last game, they were tied up, and you were allowed grudge matches in round 6. So they actually faced off against each other. I'm not gonna read through the whole of Sam's. Sorry, Sam, for writing a really long, detailed. If you want to read Sam's detailed description of what happened, it's on our Facebook page on the pinned post. It basically came down to the last game. It was Reconnoiter. Certain models were about to move off, and they got owned and lost. So that's just a really brief. I have to say well done to Sam and I believe it was Will. Yep, Sam and Will. They were the better of the two teams at the event. I had picked Tom and James, so well done, Dan, for guessing right last week. Again, if you want to read that in more detail,
yeah, I just had a little look. It's quite
any justice
it
whatsoever.
Looks like really
it's a
good
really detailed description of. It's a really when they Sam and that discussed it with me in our group chat. It sounded a lot of fun. So please go over and read it. I'm just not going to because it's too long. At the next league event, Sam has asked another question. As the next league event, it'll be 450 points. Do you expect this will mean we'll see a lot more lower cost heroes than we usually would, or will people sacrifice their numbers to keep their tried and tested beasts of war? I guess that's big heroes / beasts of war.
I think we might see a few more lower points heroes.
I mean, we've played 500.
Yeah.
And, it just means you're going to sacrifice maybe a couple of troops to keep your list similar. I'm actually taking something completely different.
Yeah.
But
I still think most of them will be fairly themed. They usually are our events. And but some people, myself included, like taking big heroes and big things. So chances are we'll see some similar lists. But yeah, I reckon we might get a few heroes we don't see before because of the lower points.
You might see. I was looking at some of the Mordor heroes, and it's definitely a good points level for your gore bags or your Zagdushes, models like that have still got strike, but they're obviously not as expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I think, as I say, people can very easily modify lists they've used before.
Yeah, just drop a few things in and out.
Drop a couple of heroes, or drop a couple of warriors or a banner or something if not elves.
So while we're on the topic of the next league event, I think it's actually full up at the moment with spaces. I think Tom took the last space.
Okay.
He messaged me yesterday. I don't think I updated the list yet. But yeah, if anyone is interested, it's on the East Anglia Hobbit community group. Go on our events tab. Anyone can come and join in. When we say league event, it just goes as a qualification for an end of year tournament. So you can come play a one-off. You can come play this event and one other and get a place in our end of year tournament. If you're trying to get a place in the tournament, you want to come on and try and increase
we haven't got
points.
many league days left. So
no, exactly.
We've got 2? Is it 2?
Yes, this and so September, October, and then the finale's in November. So
yeah, I need to get a couple of wins to boost my score up a little bit.
Yeah, but even though it's full, there is always the chance, and it's very likely that someone will not be able to make it for one reason or another.
Always.
So pop your name on the reserve list, and if you're near the top of that, it's probably fairly certain that you will end up with a space, because within the next couple of weeks, I'll start collecting payments just to make sure it's not all done last minute.
So now we're going to go over to the YouTube comments. Again, guys, the interaction on YouTube, I'm doing it again. Plug in. I'm sorry. I'm going to mention the algorithm again because I know you all love that as well. The way it works, the more interactions, whether that's likes or someone actually disliked the last one, I'm really upset about it. It's our first one we've ever got. If you've disliked it, please tell me why. I know it shouldn't matter, but I was upset, all right? But again, it still helps us technically. Just don't everyone dislike them because we will stop doing them. But any interaction you give to the video, whether that's liking, commenting, sharing, actually helps people find the video. So the more views we get, it doesn't really matter, but it just means if more people find it, we might get more questions and different questions and stuff like that. So the first comment from last week's video is Paintbrush Pirate, which is James Richardson's channel, who is a friend of the channel. Going to mention it again because Dan gets annoyed when I do it. But that is his YouTube channel. He's very close to 1,000 subscribers. So if you're here listening to this somehow and you haven't subscribed to James, go and check him out. He does some really good tutorials. If you like his stuff, drop him a sub. He has asked event ideas for next year. Siege, large-scale battles, scenario days, escalation. He enjoyed this year's one. Well, thank you, James, for enjoying the escalation event I ran. It is something that I'm definitely looking at doing again next year, but I also want to do a de-escalation event some point this year. Whether we fit it in or not, I don't know. It might move over to next year, but
yeah.
With regards to events, ideas for next year, it's not reliant on. Again, I think I've said this many times, but
yeah, anyone.
It's not reliant on me or Jack or Sean or whomever. If you want to run an event, guys, run an event. You know the community is fairly solid at supporting our events. My event, unfortunately, had a lot of dropouts, and it was sandwiched in between a couple of other things around the GBHL and the Southern Hobbit League group thing. So unfortunately, it did get cannibalized a little bit. But if you want to run an event, just put it in the group. People will, you should have good response in terms of numbers.
If anyone wants to help setting it up, message me or Josh.
Yeah, if you don't know when to fit it in the calendar or you want someone to help run it, then by all means, if one of us attends but can't play or whatever reason, or Jack's got a very easy spreadsheet that you can nick off him and file. It's really easy to use. Like even I can do it. So
you can edit it as well, and it's I don't mind sending it over and helping change it over or anything.
But if you want some of these to be league counting next year, a Siege League event could be really fun. Scenario days are great, and it is something that I would like to do more of. I just feel that the calendar's pretty full, and to get people to commit to a scenario day, it has to either be when there isn't another event on, or again, we squeeze it in somewhere. But again, guys, if you want that to happen, by all means, either message me or Jack or Sean or any of the admins on the Facebook page, and we'll sort that out for you. He also heard about some guy running a Battle Companies event, but with a twist. So that is a charity Battle Companies event. I'm not sure how the tickets are selling. What I'll try and do is find a link to it, and I'll stick it in the video when it gets uploaded. Where your heroes stay the same. So it's slightly different. What I'll do is I will link it and go and check it out. But I think James would like to do something similar next year.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I'll have to
I'd love to do a Battle Companies thing next year. But the problem with Battle Companies I find is one person's battle company always gets really strong, and then no one wants to play them. So, but it is good fun, and I guess if you could figure out a way
to manage it in a day's event as well,
to sort of keep it so everyone's on a somewhat level playing field, then yeah, it makes sense. So Totes but Awesome. This is I've forgotten his name. I know who it is. I don't know if he wants me to reveal his YouTube alias, but his list is regarding the question. We were doing 450 lists last week. We were discussing 450 lists or impossible ally lists. And again, this was prior to the FAQ. So his list was Balrog, the Bat Swarm, and Vrasku.
Yeah, we spoke about that as well, didn't we?
If you want some context to that other than what we spoke about earlier, listen to last week's pod. Tom Ramsden has commented saying, "Thanks for the answers. I take it as a compliment that my 3 Wraith list made it into the episode, considering how excellently..." So this is in relation to Kieran winning the Stand Firm Men of the Southeast event in Harlow 2 weeks ago now, I believe. Tom and Kieran played in the final. against it. As scary as the triple casters are, not to mention the triple harbinger of evil in a terror-causing army. So he had Witch King on a Fell Beast, Shadow Lord on a horse, the Dark Marshal on a horse, and then 18 Morgul Knights. It was really cool. They were let down slightly by the day performance of the Morgul Knights. So, yeah, so for troops, I can't wait for 4 A's. I don't know. I think he was just giving us a shout out essentially. Has he got a question? No, Kieran's commented on it saying it was an excellent game, really helped to realise potential weaknesses in his list, and the fact that I told him off for making some silly mistakes. Definitely the tricky and the most intense of the day. A great experience for my first. Again, guys, these comments are on the video from last week. So, Team Spirit has asked, thrilling concept for next time. Tom and I are, in fact, I think this is Sam. It is Sam. Sam Huddy. Yeah. At Stockport in Flames last October, we took a large Eastling army. We scored 3 victory points in our opening defeat. They were the last we saw all weekend. We hammered the army of the dead before Aragorn leapt in and killed us all live on Top Table Wargaming's channel. We destroyed 2 Candice chariots in a single turn before throwing Amdur under the Eastling bus in a small miscalculation. We attacked the most heavily defended camp in a 4-camped version of Storm the Camp, and Tom blamed me throughout, unsurprisingly. We came last with a potential record-breaking VP difference of -50. I think this was in relation to me commenting on them 2 being teammates before and how badly it went for them. So Sam's just giving some examples of what went wrong. So last week, CJ actually left a question where you guys would give us an answer. And I'm now remembering this, and I'm going to have to go to my phone and find the answer to said question. And
it's just skin. Is it the Balrog? Does he not say he's got any?
He does exclude monsters.
Let me have a quick think. Bayon in man form, is he defense 6 or he might be defense 5? Would it be Dane, even though he's got armor?
It's excluding armor.
Yeah, so even though he's not, so when you take his armor off,
I don't know what his base stat line is without.
It'd probably be 5 defense, wouldn't it?
It's written in his profile, isn't it? The dwarven heavy armor.
Anyway, you reveal the answer because I'm just rambling.
I'm trying to find it, mate. Right, here we go. So, excluding profiles such as siege engines, defense 10, or chariots, we have a tie for the highest non-monster defense model. The Necromancer and the Shade both have defense 8. So a point if you guess those by yourself. You have the opportunity to buy yourself a Freddo. We're nicking that from somewhere else. But both profiles specifically have no war gear, and the models themselves clearly have armor on them. So if you really wanted no hint of armor, the winner is Gandalf the White, who in his pajamas is a mighty defense 6. I think my answer was Bayon, who's I think is defense 5. Again, I don't think anyone actually. So
I'm sure someone said a Shade. I think someone said
Tom
Shade.
Hawks' answer is it not a berserker when it's being shot at defense 6? But I think its base profile for its defense is 5, so it wouldn't be that. Things he enjoys about the podcast. I love the ramblings, tangents with the questions. We don't just get answers. There's always a story or anecdote to go with it, or just complete rambling nonsense until someone says, "Shut up, Josh." He then put in response to Dan, "Come on, man, what are you doing? Your money is better invested in betting on a Hawker Wilson triumph." Apparently not. Thanks, guys.
One last question. So yes, this was the big one of the big threads, wasn't it? It's very simple.
CJ has got a question for next podcast. So again, leave in the comment section your answer to CJ's question for next week. Which 2 profiles are theoretically able to reach strength 12? There are 2 profiles that are theoretically able to reach strength 12.
Something with strength 9 and heroic strength.
Sauron?
I imagine he's got heroic strength, yeah.
I'm going to go with the Mumak.
It'll be another big monster. Balrog, because
he hasn't got any heroics, he hasn't got any might. He gets a free heroic combat, but Treebeard. No.
Yeah, he must have strength.
But he's strength 8. One of them Sauron, I reckon. Anyway,
We'll have a think, and if he
I'll
messages
leave a
you the
comment on
answer,
my own personal YouTube account and leave a comment with the answers on.
yeah, and if I'm on the next podcast, I will give you my answer before you reveal it, and if I'm not on it, I will post a comment and give my answer.
Good lad. So this is the potential can of worms scenario.
It's not really, though. It's quite simple, I think, because this was the thing that was on the GBHL. Most people have probably seen it. It was about the Tom Bombadil 25 mil being smaller than an inch business. So I'll read the actual question that Kieran has put. At risk of opening up a can of worms, what's your view on the Tom Bombadil controversy at the big tournament in Canada? The fact that a small base is 25 mil, which is 0.4 mil less than an inch, means you can't charge a model in base contact with Tom as it enters Tom control zone by 0.4 of an inch. Well, it'd be by 0.4 of a mil it would be.
My viewpoint to this, again, Tom Bombadil is, in my opinion, a scenario-based model. It shouldn't be used in match play. I think it's pretty much banned in every tournament in this country. And just stop it. Just stop being that much of a dickhead. Like, honestly, like, if you're really going to be there at an event that you've paid money to go to and then be like pushing, if you wear glasses, pushing glasses up your nose and telling people, oh, you can't charge me because of 0.4 millimeters, just get in the bin. Stop it. Just behave.
See, I understand how in top tables, top tournaments for world championships, country, region championships, you're going to be very competitive. You'll stick to the rules. But that is quite obviously, in my opinion, a very, very unintended wording of 25 mils and an inch. We all know that a 25 mil base you use as an inch. Well, in my opinion, everyone I play against plays it that way.
There is another example regarding if you've got models lined up in a perfect shield wall and two of your models charge 1 and 1, the two models round the side, because they're in a shield wall in an area of impassable terrain, so they couldn't then move to charge the other models because they can't enter the control zone of the model that has charged their friendly model because they can't go over the terrain and they can't go around the other model. Just stop it. Just stop it. It's stupid. In that scenario of the scenery, if you ever find that and do that, then fair play, because it is allowed. But it's so
something like that with positions and everything else. Then that's not necessarily with this inch and 25 mil business. That is down to tactics at really top table, at high level tournaments and things. And at the end of the day, the objective is to win that to an extent, not all costs really, but for 99% of the games.
If you're doing the Tom Bombadil thing, that is a win at all cost scenario.
Yeah, and I know people say you play rules as written, not as intended, because people's interpretations of the rules are different. But that is quite obviously not as... You can't, even in my opinion, interpret that as that's intended to be that way. No. There's not even a question of that. And just that if they ever come up, ask a TO or whatever, because I can't imagine that would happen in a friendly game.
Bombadil's banned at all of our events anyway. So
do you know what? Funnily enough, I don't think that's in the league rules. I'll have to edit it.
FAQ coming soon.
Yes, we'll do a review of the league FAQ.
Because that's just... It's a scenario. It's for a scenario for the Barrow-wights and the Hobbits in the old set of. Is it the Fog on Barrow Down set? And it was a scenario in one of the old source books. He's not meant to be in match games. Just stop it. Just stop being naughty. It's silly.
Yeah. Like if some people are playing to win these tournaments. Of course you are if you're on the top tables, but. That example of the inch and the 0.4 millimeters, that's just a bit unnecessary.
In the example that was given, Radagast was hiding behind Bombadil.
And they couldn't be charged.
You can't enter Bombadil's control zone because you're not allowed to charge him.
Yeah, that's just... No.
It's so silly. Just stop it. Yeah. No one wants to win that badly, I'm sure. Or maybe they do, but I certainly don't. And at East Anglia events, it's just not... We're a little bit more relaxed than that. Just don't do it. Just stop it.
But anyway, on that note, I think that's the last question for this week.
It is the last interaction on both our Facebook and the YouTube episode.
Yeah. So I think we'll wrap up this episode here. Next week will potentially be either a hobby update of what we've been up to, or we will be potentially looking at getting some other people. I think CJ's expressed an interest in getting on to talk about Magic.
The state of Magic in the current edition, which obviously has changed since we discussed with him coming on as a guest again, because the spells that have been so prevalent have just been nerfed.
Yeah, so it's a good time to be doing that. So we'll look at doing that next week. That'll be quite a good topic. So if you've got any questions regarding that topic, drop them in the comments of the YouTube video. We think it's going to be easier to do it this way going forward rather than keep going backwards and forwards.
Yeah, we're not going to put a post up for the podcast. Well, actually, I will put a post up, but what it's going to say is here's a link to the YouTube episode. Go and put your questions there for next week.
Yeah.
I'm doing the YouTubey bit again. Comment, like, share it, subscribe. We are on 56 subscribers. I'm going to do a giveaway at 100. Jack didn't know that until now.
No, I just found that out.
So when we get to 100, if we get to 100, we're going to give something away. I'm not going to say what it is, because it might not be that good. But it also might be that good. So subscribe and find out. Leave your questions for next week's episode regarding the current meta of Magic in Middle-earth SBG. Leave your questions to CJ's question of the week, which is, again, which two models can hypothetically get to strength 12? And leave me a nice comment. I like to read nice comments.
Yeah, leave any comments, any other questions related to the hobby on there, or anything, whatever you want. We'll answer most of them, if not all of them. And this week, just a special mention to CJ, who's going to start editing our podcast to get rid of some of our and ums.
The spaces and the ums and ahs. Make it sound... Actually, I think he edits the audio quality as well, so it might sound a little bit better as well.
Yeah, so shout out to CJ for doing that, and everyone else for watching through to the end. Thank you very much. You can check us out on our Facebook group, the East Anglia Hobbit community.
Link that in the video.
Yeah,
I think it's on our YouTube. It's on our YouTube channel as well. So
we'll do that, and yeah, we have events and just general ramblings. And
we didn't plug events.
There. I don't think there's been any new ones.
Very quickly, just because the tickets go on sale for our East Anglia Hobbit Community GBAHL event this week.
It's a 100-point event as well, isn't it?
It's a 100-point league event, and I'm pretty sure tickets go on sale very soon. James Wilson has created an events page, and he has linked that events page on the GBHL page. So you should be able to find it. I believe it's called The Scaring of the Shire, because it's in October. So it's Halloween themed. There's fancy dress. There's some cool stuff we've got planned. So when tickets go available, please buy them, guys. Please come along and support our event, because we are going to buy some new tables, and we've got some new scenery coming, and it should be a lot of fun anyway. So, and that's it. I'm done.
Yeah. And so, yeah, with that, I think we'll wrap it up there. Thanks for joining me today, Josh, and thanks for keeping the podcast running, because I know I've been jumping in and out the last few weeks. But
nice to have you back, mate.
We'll still keep this moving forward on a weekly basis, and hopefully go with the current state of Magic in the new edition.
I think we've had 6 weeks consecutively now, which is nice.
Yeah, it's good work. So we can go with it. Right, so yeah, thank you all for listening. Thanks for listening through to the end, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Catch you next week, guys. Bye-bye.